Alright battlers, welcome back to a brand new Sinister Cup video. Before we get into these battles, I just want to make a quick shout out to Go Stadium. Go Stadium organizes remote cups around the world, and my opponents are no exception. These players are from different countries and different time zones, but we all come together because of Pokemon Go PvP. So if you want to compete in your own remote cups, make sure to join the Discord. I will leave the link in the description below. Join the Discord, enter your information, join a league, start building those friendships, and you can do battles just like these. My round 1 opponent is Benge 95. He's going to be bringing Poliwrath, Haunter, STEELIX, Empoleon, Alola Marowak, and Claydol. I'm going to decide to lead with Empoleon. I do have Haunter and Medicham behind it. Jumping right into game 1 of round 1, my opponent will lead with Poliwrath. So this is exactly what I didn't want to see. I'm going to swap into Haunter here and then use the Shadow Punch to put pressure on my opposing Poliwrath. My opponent does shield and then goes for a charge move. Expecting the Ice Punch here, I do shield. We predicted that correctly, which is great for us. I go for another Shadow Punch here to try to do as much damage as I can to the Poliwrath. This one's actually going to connect, and that's great for us. My opponent fires off another charge move. Expecting the Ice Punch, I'm actually prepared to let Haunter fall, but it's just the Power-Up Punch. So we simultaneously KO, and whoever throws out their Pokemon first is at a disadvantage, and he throws out the Claydol. So I come in here with my Empoleon. I'm using some Waterfalls here, and Claydol is a ground type, so these Waterfalls are really chunking away. He's going to fire off a charge move, which is Psychic, and a couple more Waterfalls are going to bring it down. So I have an Empoleon with a ton of energy. In comes the STEELIX. I'm feeling extremely comfortable because even if the STEELIX is able to KO my Medicham, I have the Empoleon with the Hydro Pump in the back. He does burn his last shield there and go for the Crunch against my Medicham. No big deal. I'm going to keep using these counters, and one more Power-Up Punch is going to seal the deal for us. We win round 1. Going into round 2, I will lead with Empoleon again. I have Haunter and Medicham in the back. So Empoleon is going to encounter Haunter, and this is why I loved using Empoleon in my Go Stadium Remote Cup, is because its Waterfalls do such great neutral damage to things like Haunter. Look at this. 4 or 5 Waterfalls and Haunter is already at half life, and then it's gone. So we were waiting for my opponent to bring out his next Pokemon, and it turns out he comes in with the Claydol. This is still good for me, and this tells me that my opponent does not have a great answer for my Empoleon, so I do fire off the Flash Cannon here and go for another Waterfall before switching into Haunter. I know these confusions will melt Haunter, and I can only take a couple, so I do go here for the Shadow Punch. My opponent does decide to shield and then spend all their energy in this attack here, which they probably could have just used the Confusion. I do have a couple of options here, and I go in with my Empoleon. 3 more Waterfalls are going to bring down the Claydol, and I have a ton of energy. In comes a Poliwrath, and guys, look at this. We're able to get to the Flash Cannon. So we do a ton of damage to this Poliwrath on our way out, and then in comes the Medicham with a shield, and I'm feeling very confident about this matchup. I know that I can either use Power-Up Punches and counter to win, or I can go for the Psychic. I opt to do the former, and I go straight for these counters and Power-Up Punches, and a couple more will win us the game. Jumping into round 3, I decide to lead with Mawile. I do have Empoleon and Medicham behind it. My opponent will go in with Empoleon, and this is not what I wanted to see. I'm actually going to stay in for a little while and ramp up some damage here. I go for the Bite to try to see what I can do, and I get really lucky and draw my opponent's shield. So in comes the Medicham. I'm going to try to farm down this Empoleon, and we do exactly that. In comes the Claydol, and I go straight for the Psychic. I know this is more of an aggressive play, and I do get shielded, but I figured I had the energy advantage, and I might as well do it. My opponent's going to fire off a charge move here, and I allow it through. It is Psychic, and Medicham will go down. I do decide to bring in my Mawile, and its Dark-type bites will just chew through that Claydol. We're actually going to fire off the Power-Up Punch here to ramp up this damage even further, and a few more bites will take down the Claydol. In comes Haunter, and look at that. We already work it down to half health, and then in comes Empoleon with 2 shields, and I'm feeling extremely confident. I know the Waterfalls will win it for us, and we win round 1. My round 2 opponent is Seabeastian. Seabeastian's bringing STEELIX, Alola Marowak, Poliwrath, Bronzong, Medicham, and Alolan Raichu. My team is Gardevoir in the lead with Mawile and Haunter. This is a risky line because I don't have a fighter. Let's see how it goes. So we lead into that Alola Marowak. I'm going to use these charms here and look over my options. It is a Hex variant, so I'm not too afraid to bring in the Mawile, but instead I opt for Haunter. I do shield that Shadow Ball, absorbing all that energy, so I know the Alola Marowak doesn't have energy when it comes back in. In comes the Poliwrath, and I go for the Shadow Punches here to put some pressure on it. We do earn 1 shield and then do some damage there, so the Poliwrath is right around a little less than half health. My opponent does expend their energy here when my Haunter is already very low. They do ramp up their bubbles by using that Power-Up Punch, but I don't think that would have been the optimal move. I think they could have bubbled me down. In comes my Mawile, and I'm using these bites here, attempting to farm down the Poliwrath, but we don't quite make it. We do shield here against the Power-Up Punch, and my Mawile has a ton of energy. I'm going to fire off these bites against the Medicham and then switch into Gardevoir. I'm hoping that my opponent will not switch, but here comes a charge move, and it is Ice Punch. So Gardevoir is worn out. I do get to the Shadow Ball here against the Alola Marowak, but it's going to be very close. Excuse me, Synchronoise that time. Alola Marowak will bring us down. I'm going to fire off the Power-Up Punch here, and this is still not enough. The Alola Marowak gets to the charge move and will bring us down. Beastian beats me in Game 1. Jumping into Game 2, I will lead with Mawile. I do have Gardevoir, and I decided to bring a fighter this time, so I have Medicham. I lead that Mawile into the Medicham, so we lose this lead. This is not a great situation for us. I do switch into Gardevoir, and we get a few charms off before my opponent switches into Alola Marowak. So the Marowak is here. I go straight for that Shadow Ball, knowing that Gardevoir is only able to get to 1 charge move because the Alola Marowak is going to start throwing charge moves pretty soon. I actually decide not to shield my Gardevoir here, allowing the Bone Club through. I want to save those shields for the Pokemon I have in the back. And guys, excuse me, but I got a phone call during these matches is why we're skipping. So skipping ahead, we have Mawile versus Poliwrath. I do go here for the Power-Up Punch, and it does a little bit of chip damage, but I'm trying to ramp up those bites. I actually don't shield my Mawile here and allow the Power-Up Punch through and do a few more bites to the Poliwrath. In comes Medicham with 2 shields. So I'm going to let this first move through. I know it's not a Hydro Pump based on how many bubbles were just used. In comes Medicham, and I'm going to fire off this Power-Up Punch, hoping to get the shield. We don't quite, or we do actually get the shield, which is excellent for us. I'm going to shield this attack, which is Psychic, so another excellent move for us. I know 1 Psychic will bring down this Medicham, and then all I need to do is Psychic the Poliwrath. So we achieve the first goal. In comes the Poliwrath, and we actually might not even need the Psychic. I burn my last shield here to defend my Medicham from the Power-Up Punch, and then go for my own Power-Up Punch here. So my opponent could still win if they get to the Ice Punch, but we're able to KO them first. Going to the next round, I will lead with Medicham. I have Gardevoir and Mawile, so same line. I'm just changing the flow, as Hero of Vange would say. We lead that Medicham straight into Steelix, and this is perfect for us. My opponent does switch out into Poliwrath, and I come in with Gardevoir. So everything is lining up perfectly for me. I'm going to allow this charge move through. Anything less than a Hydro Pump would not one-shot Gardevoir, so I knew I would be okay. In comes Alola Marowak, and I'm going to put some shield pressure on it with the Synchronoise. So this is the gift of Gardevoir. If you come in and you're able to trap the fighter and then fire off a charge move, you take down 1 poke, and you also get to take the shield. So in comes my Mawile. Because this is a Hex Alola Marowak, I'm very comfortable bringing this in. My opponent expends all her energy in the form of the Shadow Ball, and then I switch into Medicham to respond to her Steelix. So I am going to use these counters against Steelix and then fire off another Power-Up Punch to ramp up this damage. I am feeling pretty confident. I do have that Mawile, and again, that Alola Marowak used its energy before it swapped out, so it's out of energy. I do shield this Earthquake to keep my Medicham topped off, and I know I'm going to go straight for the Psychic here against the Marowak, and we do exactly that. So we win that game, and now my next opponent in round 3 is going to be Rubia. Rubia has a Medicham, Dusclops, Poliwrath, Forretress, Drifblim, and Steelix. So this was a very interesting pick, especially Forretress. I'm going to lead with Gardevoir. I do have Bastiodon and Medicham in the back. So immediately we catch this lead. This is great for us. I do fire off a charm, and then he swaps into Steelix. We are lining things up perfectly. Here comes my fighting type Medicham against his Steelix. I do fire off the Power-Up Punch here and start ramping up these counters. I am a little bit wary of the Earthquake here. I know he probably can't get to another charge move, so he's going to go all out, and he does exactly that. We shield the Earthquake, and Medicham has a ton of energy. In comes my opponent's Medicham, and I go straight for the Psychic. If this lands, it'll pay off big for us, and it does. Look at that, just draining that Medicham. I fire off the Power-Up Punch here, just trying to get as much damage off as I can. My opponent is going to use a charge move, and it turns out it is just the power up punch. Might have been a bait there. I actually am going to counter down the Medicham. So he has 2 shields and a Poliwrath. I'm going to go straight for the Psychic here. I probably had an opportunity to try to go for the bait, but he just lets it through, and I win game 1. For game 2, I am going to lead with Haunter. I do have Gardevoir and Medicham behind it. I lead with Haunter right into Dusclops, and again, this is one of the reasons I loved Haunter in this cup, because it beats all the other ghosts. It's a ghost that beats ghosts. So I fire off the Shadow Punch here, and he lets it through, and look at that Dusclops. It's so weak. I'm not sure it can even get to 2 Shadow Punches, and it doesn't. We actually Shadow Claw it down. So my opponent is down, or I'm down a shield, but I won the lead. In comes the Poliwrath, and I go straight for the Shadow Punch. I'm actually going to leave Haunter in here because it can be so spammy once it gets going. I fire off another Shadow Punch, and that Poliwrath is already at half health. I decided to come in with Gardevoir and shield this attack. I'm not sure if it was a Hydro Pump. It actually just turns out to be Power Up Punch. But look at this. My opponent switch locks himself into STEELIX, and I bring out the Medicham. So again, things are all lining up for me really well here. I do fire off some more counters to try to work down the STEELIX, but not before the Earthquake comes in. Medicham takes that like a boss and is still around. My opponent still has the 1 shield, so I'm going to go for the Psychic. Either I get the Poliwrath or the shield, and I get the shield. I use a few more counters here, and because I'm ramped up so high, I actually bring him down. Going into the last round, I lead with Haunter. I have Gardevoir and Medicham behind it. My Haunter is going to lead right into that Dusclops again, so let's see if Rubia decides to play this match a little differently. I do go for the Shadow Punch here, immediately trying to put pressure on the Dusclops, and he does shield this time. So this is already kind of a different matchup. I am going to shield myself as well. I know the Hex is very fast to get to moves, and he actually gets to another move before I can. So I have to double shield my Haunter here, and that's a very risky play. I do go for the Shadow Punch, but I'm banking on the idea that I have enough energy to go for another charge move when his second Pokemon comes in, and we do exactly that. His STEELIX comes in, and I reveal my Dark Pulse. Dark Pulse is going to land, doing a big chunk to that STEELIX. He is up a shield, but I have the perfect counters, and look at this, switch locked right back in where I want him. The Gardevoir versus the Poliwrath is an easy matchup for me. I know that I can build up some energy here, and then I can release it on the STEELIX. And here comes the Synchro Noise against the STEELIX. He does have 1 more shield left, and he's going to shield that attack. And then I use a couple more charms. He's going to have to fire off a move here. A lot of people forgot that Gardevoir is a Fairy type and resists Dragon type moves, so those Dragon Tails do virtually nothing. In comes the Medicham, and 1 more counter wins us the game. In the 4th and final round, I am facing off against a Season 1 ace, Dokku Rubia. He is bringing Poliwrath, STEELIX, Drifblim, Mawile, Medicham, and Alolan Marowak. These matches are very exciting, and you don't want to miss them. For round 1, I decide to lead with that Empoleon. I do have Medicham and Haunter behind it. Empoleon is going to lead right into that Mawile, and this is great for me. I've won the lead situation, so I'm going to continue to use these waterfalls. The bite is chipping down on my Empoleon, but I'm chipping down on the Mawile even faster. He does fire off the power-up punch, and I'm going to continue to use these waterfalls, and guys, we win with a sliver of health. That might have been an IV-dependent matchup. I'm going to fire off the Hydro Pump here against the STEELIX. He has no choice but to shield, so we definitely get that first shield, which is great for us. We won the lead, and we're up on shields. I do go in here with Medicham and fire off the Power-Up Punch. He did decide to stay in for a moment, so I released my charge move, but his switch was at the last moment. That's okay, though. He does have the Drifblim, so I'm going to go straight for the Shadow Punch here with Haunter, and those Shadow Claws are doing way more damage than his Hex is doing to me. I'm actually going to shield this Ominous Wind and attempt to go for another Shadow Punch. And I kind of over-farmed there, but that's okay. The Shadow Claws do the trick. I reveal my Dark Pulse here against the STEELIX and do a big chunk of damage. I'm going to use a few more, and then here we go with another Shadow Punch. So Haunter, squishy, but the damage output is insane. We win game 1. For game 2, I lead with Medicham. I have Haunter and Empoleon in the back. Medicham is going to lead right into Drifblim, so immediately I know that I lost this matchup. He goes to he swaps into Mawile, and my Haunter is in big trouble. I do fire off the Dark Pulse, so we work down that Mawile a little bit, but I know I have to deal with that Drifblim. So I decide to come in here with my Empoleon and get some energy ramped up, but unlucky for me, he actually is able to get off a charge move. The Power Punch is super effective, and Empoleon has 3/4 of its health left. In comes that Poliwrath, and I know he's going to line up my Medicham with the Drifblim, so I'm in big trouble. I decide not to shield that move, and then I switch into Medicham, and here we go. I know I can try to take some shields with the Psychic, so that's my goal. I actually am going to defend that Ominous Wind and then go for the Psychic, but things are not looking good for us. This is an uphill battle. I do fire out the first Psychic, and I'm expecting another charge move here. I'm expecting another, possibly a Shadow Ball, and it's just another Ominous Wind. So we go for almost a second Psychic, but it might have been a CMP tie, but he wins that, and my Medicham is just barely able to hang on. I do fire off that second Psychic here, and we work that Drifblim really low, so we're attempting to bring this match back, but in comes the Poliwrath. I do fire out the Flash Cannon to try to put some pressure on it, but he does shield that, and I know one more charge move will finish us off. Dokku Rubia wins game 2. Here we go, battlers, game 3 for the championship. I lead with Bastiodon, I have Gardevoir and Medicham behind it. Dokku Rubia opens with that Mawile. I do have the Bastiodon, so I do win this matchup, although it is closer than you might think. I do have the Flamethrower asset, so whenever I need to use that, I can. My opponent does fire off the Power Punch, so these bites are about to get even heavier. I do go for the Flamethrower, and I know this will KO if it lands, so my opponent does decide to shield. I fire off a few more smackdowns here, and the bites are doing great work against us. In comes another charge move, and Bastiodon is so bulky, I actually allow it through. I'm going to fire off this Flamethrower, and what a perfect switch. Ace switch right there. I do switch into my Gardevoir here to answer it though, and a few charms are going to do great damage. I have both of my shields. I'm going to allow the Ice Punch through, and I know that Mawile is weak. So Dokku thinks it over for a couple of moments. He decides to bring in that Mawile again, and he's able to bite down the Gardevoir. That's okay because I know I have my Bastiodon and I have my Medicham. I do come in with Medicham and use 4 counters to bring down the Mawile. His last Pokemon is Drifblim. So my goal here is to burn those shields so I can bring in my Bastiodon and use the smackdowns. He does get to a charge move here, and I have 2 shields, so I'm feeling very confident. I just need to play this perfectly and not mess this up. I do go for a shield bait with the Power-Up Punch, and he does take it, so I'm feeling extremely confident. This is it, guys. We're closing in on the 4-0 championship sweep. I do shield the Ominous Wind and go for the Psychic here, and this will win us the entire Sinister Cup. I joined Go Stadium in the middle of Season 1, and I have never looked back, guys. It's never too early. It's never too late to join. Join anytime you want. It's been so much fun. These remote battles are super intense, and they really help me to get ready for my local cups, because those are the ones that I usually wait, because I'm playing those in my community with my friends, and I just want, that at full experience. But these Go Stadium cups are instrumental to all the success that I have had and will continue to have in Season 2. I highly recommend it, guys. Go down there and click the link, and as always, if you like this content, like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate you watching to the end, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.